is, oh, is that how it goes now? Is it time where the country's home, the country's national, home, that is where the president stays and where he does his activities, is not even dependent on the electricity of the country? Is it because they know that it's not, or have no plans to even get it fixed, or is this just some other ways? And I was of the opinion that this necessarily isn't a bad thing. And I said so because I felt in my own way that the Aso Villa, some other government parastatals, especially universities, actually should be self-sufficient when it comes to their own electricity. I've always been of that opinion. And so when I saw that news, which which has not really been confirmed by the Aso Villa itself, I felt, okay, is this really bad? But I could understand why Nigerians will feel, oh, this is not good. Because now they're thinking, we are being left on our own to find out what's going to happen. Is this a means to neglect the electricity stations that we have in Nigeria and focus on you having just electricity because you have solar power worth 10 billion? We could understand the fear. But what do you think, listening at home? Do you think this is something that is good for the country, or do you think this is something that the presidency should not even think about? Well, you can be that part of this conversation if you call us up on 0704 425 2109, or if you reach us via WhatsApp or your regular text message on 0907 224 5018. We're on all your social media handles. That is, we're on X, FKA, Twitter, we're on Instagram and on TikTok at iImpact1021FM. That is HI Impact 1021 FM. We are live on YouTube at iImpact 102.1 FM. Go subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click on the notification button so you can know whenever we are live right here in the studio. We're on Facebook at iImpact Radio 102.1 FM. Once again, I say welcome to the newspaper review. My name is Uche Okori.
Good morning, Lagos. Welcome to newspaper review this morning. Uche, is National Grid a joke to you? Are you joking?
I knew you were coming there.
Are you joking with National Grid right now? I mean, this is the real damnation of run for your life. And as it is right now, I can share the sentiment of a lot of Nigerians. Because if this thing comes into fruition, I mean, this particular alleged rumor that we are hearing, then just be it as it may, whenever or however it is, the national grid gets to collapse, just know that it's going to take longer than expected before it gets fixed. Because now,
I beg to differ.
Okay.
I just really think sometimes we just have to be optimistic in terms of what we are expecting, because in as much as this, it has its gruesome look, and let's be honest.
Yeah.
Nigerians are taken aback for about the news
By the
or
mission.
about the
Yeah.
alleged news, But I, for one, have always been of the opinion that with how our electricity situation is at the moment, we've not been, for so many years, we've known that for Nigeria to get to where it's meant to be in terms of electricity supply, we need to be at least be generating nothing less than 15,000 to 20,000 megawatts of electricity. And this is something we've not been able to achieve. We've not even been able to achieve 10,000. This recent administration was just able to get to about 5,300 or 6,000 or thereabout, and this is somewhere we're dabbling about for a very long time. So we understand that the power situation in Nigeria is
I
tricky.
think there were claims a couple days ago as well that there's going to be like an increase in the
in the coming
mega
years.
that
But
they are
as of
looking
right
for.
now, it's about 5,003 to about 6,000 megawatts. And so, we've heard of different stories. Simons during the Buhari's administration about Simons coming in to do some solar power and take some neighborhoods out of the national grid or some particular areas. I do not know how big it's supposed to cover. We've also seen the Ministry of Power talking about solar, introducing solar into the electricity.
I can recall that at a point in time there was some form of ban on the importation of solar power, solar panel.
That there's a ban. We have. I'm certain we have Nigerian industries there that can produce solar panel. That there's a ban.
So it's not a must to get imported.
It's not a must to get imported.
Okay.
And I think that's good for our market. If we're going towards that particular section and saying, okay, this is the means at which we want to create electricity. Only where I think then we can cry foul is especially when it's neglected. And I do understand. And I feel the major wrong I see in it is this is a Nigerian Aso Villa. It belongs to Nigeria under normal circumstances.
A couple of Nigerians also believe that it might be as a result of the tariff hike. That's why the villa is also
whatever
running.
means it might be like, whatever reason it will be. I feel you're supposed to be naturally on the national grid just to symbolize that, okay, Nigeria is working. You are depending on your electricity. But at the same time, if this is going to take away certain load away from the national grid, whereby that the amount of power which is going into Aso Villa is redirected somewhere else into some other community and help, improve power situation in that community, I don't think it's a bad thing. I think universities, other governmental agencies too, not necessarily maybe solar. There are other modular forms of, generating electricity that exist. Look at Abia State as it is now. Aba and some parts of Abia State depend on their own electricity. And they're still planning on building more. So other things can be done. And I think these things should be carried out as soon as possible. Universities needs to have some of these things. They need to be self-sufficient. The amount of electricity is expensive. If you check out the list of the amounts these people are owing, you realize that, man, they need to be self-sufficient. But hey, let's get straight to the papers this morning, and we're going to run through it as fast as we can. But
Definitely.
we just had to talk about the biggest story, even if it might not make the major news. But at least that's what Nigerians are talking about at
right
the moment,
now, on the lips of everyone.
on the lips of everyone. So let's see if that pans out to be true or just some sort of rumor. We see on the Daily Trust, which we will be starting with this morning, Kano, Katsina, Jigawa get 2-hour power supply daily. Can you imagine? And we're just talking about power.
2 hours.
2 hours daily. That is poor. Imagine SMEs in that community. How are they supposed to survive? It means they have to depend on petrol. Imagine how crazy it would be. Transformers in my neighborhood has blown. This is the 3rd month. I know how expensive it is to run on petrol. So I'm imagining businesses that will have to spend the whole day needing petrol to survive, just because you're given 2 hours of a day. So if they're going to be opened at their place of work for about 10 hours, so 8 hours of those 10 hours, that is if the 2 hours is in the middle of the day and not in the middle of the night where they just get to use it to sleep for about a couple of hours. Imagine how those businesses, how much expensive things will be, because
There's no way they are going to thrive.
even if they will thrive, it's going to be on the back end of the people, because
The
now
consumer,
they will have to
pay.
They will have to pay. They will have to make sure everything is expensive. You using that same of my neighborhood as an example. You want cold water and you want it in bag. You're paying as much as 800 naira. Because now the person that I have to go get ice block, I have to go do this, I have to go do that, just to make sure that this water is cold for you to drink. She has to recoup her money at the end of the day. It's not her fault that the transformer is not there. It's not her fault you needed cold water. If you want ordinary water, there's water there for you to drink. But you asked for cold water, and she had to make sure it was cold. That means she went through to make sure it was cold. She spent money to make sure it was cold. And that's how it's going to be everywhere. We have 2 riders to that story. Small businesses suffer losses. Kedco blames outage on system upgrade. You find that story on page 3 and 4. You get to see pictures on the front page of the Daily Trust. This has to do with Christians on Easter Monday protesting in Jos Plateau State over the recent killings in Bokos and Basa local government areas of the state. You find that story on page 26. In case you want all of those details, you need to go look at that one on the Daily Trust. Underneath it, Pope Francis, what happens when a pope dies? Right after that story, 137 cardinals to choose new pontiff. You see this story on page 6 and page 7 of the Daily Trust. The Pope is dead. A really sad one. This is one Pope we saw on Sunday, waving to the people, and everyone thought, oh, maybe the Pope is healthy enough to stay longer. But
yeah, I mean, a couple of people met with him on Sunday, early morning, and just a couple of minutes after it passed.
It's a sad one. It's a really sad one, and I somehow wish I was one of those people who met him before he went, because imagine what things he must have said to them before
the final, thoughts,
Pope. Man,
blessings and prayers. Okay.
Who knows? Anyways, underneath the Daily Trust, Zamfara residents pay millions for safety. You find that story on page 5 of the Daily Trust. How do they pay? What do they pay? You want to find out? It's in the Daily Trust. After 19 days, Tinubu returns from France UK trips. You find that one on page 30 of the Daily Trust this morning. The president is back. Welcome home, Daddy.
Tambourine of excitement.
Welcome home, Daddy. Page 23. 5 dead, 13 injured as truck rams into procession in Gombe. That one is on page 23. A really, really sad one. And of course, we saw on X yesterday when the spokesperson of the president, Bayo Nanuga, talked about the president returning home. And so hopefully I think we're going to see in some of the papers that he's supposed to meet with some service chiefs. And so let's see how that one pans out. But that's the much for the Daily Trust.
Anyway, from the Daily Trust newspaper this morning, straight into the Guardian newspaper. Well, top story on the Guardian newspaper is a big image of Pope Francis, highlighting the fact that tributes are pouring in for the man of humility, as he's been called, Pope for the poor, as Vatican awaits a new leader. And it's been stated that Pope Francis lived between 1936 to 2025, make that 88 years. Just beneath that major story is where it said that Moro accuses Tinubu of ignoring Senate insecurity resolutions. Moro accuses Tinubu of ignoring Senate insecurity resolutions. That's on page 5 of the Guardian newspaper. And beside that, you have another story coming through from Osun State, southwest Nigeria. Adeleke decries arson of Ilesha High Court, others probe. Adeleke decries arson of Ilesha High Court, others probe. That's on page 7 of the Guardian newspaper. And below that, you have story coming through saying Fubara supporters await recall, says Tinubu acted in Rivers' interest. Wow. Finally, we've seen a group that is in support of what the president has done. Fubara supporters await recall, says Tinubu acted in Rivers' interest. That's on page 20 of the Guardian newspaper for this morning. And still on the Guardian newspaper, it says a group alleges killing of 20,300 persons, 19,000 churches, schools destroyed in Southeast. Wow, amazing figures. 20,300 persons have been allegedly killed by a particular, sect, and 19,000 churches and schools have been destroyed in the Southeast. You want more of that particular story? Check out page 29 of the Guardian newspaper this morning. And below the nameplate of the Guardian newspaper, you have it there. Mutfwang digs into roots of insecurity as Alia decries Edda siege. Mutfwang digs into root of insecurity as Alia decries Edda siege. Mutfwang, just so you know, the governor of Plateau State right there. That story is on page 3 of the Guardian newspaper. Top 5 Nigerians bank gross 17.3 trillion, gross profit by 60%. That is on the business page of the Guardian newspaper. And beside that, you have the story says 2027. Obi could be president under PDP, says Showumi. This person looks like to be predicting the future for us already. And we're all right here to see how 2027 is going to pan out for us. 2027, Obi could be president under People's Democratic Party, says Showumi. And last on the Guardian newspaper for this morning, manufacturers grown as alternative energy gobs 1.1 trillion in 1 year. I mean, a lot of talks about energy this morning. We've talked about, how power has not been relatively easy for a lot of average Nigerians to get. We've actually been skedaddling between different bands in recent time, the tariff hike, and then we've seen what the outcome is coming through on the nation's economy, and also people who are into the business of manufacturing. They are groaning and says alternative energies gulping 1.1 trillion naira in 1 year. That's on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper for today. If you want more on those stories, check out the Guardian newspaper.
Well, definitely so much stories on the Guardian newspaper in case you want to find out all of them, and it cannot be overemphasized. The manufacturing industry is one industry that needs not just wants, it needs steady electricity. Without steady electricity, it will be impossible to actually have a better economy. And so not just that, we're talking about even the education industry, we're talking about even the smallest of scales of businesses. Electricity cannot be overemphasized of how its importance makes every other thing better. Just only having a street light, this solar panel street lights in your neighborhood increases the economic activity of your neighborhood, because now you're seeing that woman who fries akara and closes by 8 p.m. now is no longer closing by 8 p.m. She closes by 10 p.m., 11 p.m. because she knows the street lights will be on up until that time. You see people who are coming back late, ready to eat and ready to come, patronize her because now she stays late in the night because there's electricity. So all these little things have effects, and I do not understand why it has not been fixed yet. Nigeria has come so far that 2025 we're still dabbling below 6,000 megawatts, and it makes no sense. I do not understand why it's that way. I don't understand why it's that way, and I've never understood why it has been nearly impossible to fix our electricity. Anyways, you can always be a part of the conversation if you call us up on 0704 425 2109, or if you reach us via WhatsApp or your regular text message on 0907 224 5018. From the Guardian newspaper, we move to the Punch newspaper this morning, and the Punch newspaper says this one: Tinubu to meet service chiefs over rising killings. You find that story on page 2. You see a riders to that story. President returns from France, UK. Presidency blames governors for worsening insecurity. Protest in Jos. We could go back and forth on who the buck of responsibility rests on when it comes to security in the country. Now, we see situations where we know for a fact that each governor is the security chief of a state. He is in charge of the safety and the protection of his people. But at the same time, we also know the police is in charge of the protection and the safety of the people. And so therefore, would we really blame the governors when the police, which is federal controlled, is not able to curb killings or make sure that security is in place? Are we really going to be right to blame the governors? In as much as I feel, yes, they will have their own part and their own quota to play in making sure that the security is indeed well in their state. But at the end of the day, it rests on the bulk of the federal government because it's in charge of the police. And if we could go far back as 2014, 2013, we could remember the president back then, while he was still a citizen, tweeting, and saying that the security and lives of the Nigerian people rest on the table of President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan. Would it be unfair to say the same thing at this point and say, okay, now the onion is on your table. How are you going to solve it? Because you've been at the other side and you've told us who is meant to solve it. Now you are that person sitting in that position that you claim is meant to be the person able to solve it. I think the only thing the presidency has to do is solve it. I don't think that
I'm not shifting blame.
I don't think there should be any blame games at this point. There should be nothing coming from the presidency that has to do with shifting blames. It's not a good look at all. It's not a good look. We know for a fact, we've been talking for years and years, talking about why state policing is needed, this and that, back and forth. But it has not existed. So would you blame the governors for not securing the lives and properties of their state when they are not in control of the agency that is meant to determine how the properties and lives are secured? It's impossible to blame them, in as much as they have their own parts to play. But the bigger part is not on their table. The bigger part is not on their table. And so the presidency should not put blame games when it comes to insecurity at the moment. All it needs to start doing is making sure it comes to an end. The service chiefs, there needs to be fire underneath their chair. What are you doing?
What have you been doing?
What have you been doing? That the presidency has to meet them again to talk about it. I think it's a huge slap. Why? Because the president shouldn't be reminding you of your job. It's because you are competent. It's why the president placed you there, that you can do this job. If I own a company and I will have to call you back over and over and over again to remind you of how to do your job, I'd rather get someone else who can do your job.
I'll show you the door.
I do not see a reason why I have to remind you of the job which you were placed there because I trusted the fact that you can handle yourself. Moving on other stories which we have right here on the Punch newspaper this morning, we see this one and it says it has the pictures of the Pope respectfully, and it says Tinubu world leaders mourn as Pope Francis dies at 88. Underneath that one, I didn't interfere in a laughing selection, says Makinde. For you who wants to find out about that story, page 12 is where you will find out. Beside it, Lagos launches probe as building collapse, death hits 7. Lagos launches probe as building collapse, death hit 7. Page 5 is where that story is. I think this should not be taken lightly. I think people need to go to jail for this because we can't accept substandard materials or poor building conduct in any state in Nigeria, most especially in Lagos State. It makes no sense, and until consequences of actions is seen, I think we'll still have engineers or foremen or whatever the case may be, real estate people who will continue finding a cheap way to make more money at the expense of the lives of everyday Nigerians. Beside that one, Rivers, Fubara's backers go spiritual. I was almost tempted to sing a Burna Boy song this morning as I saw that. Really spiritual? Okay. Above the nameplates this morning, electricity failures inflate manufacturers' generator bill to 1 trillion naira. We can talk about that over and over and over again, and it will be the same old thing. Page 25 is where that story is. Japa, FG target ghost workers in fresh payroll audit. Page 7. This for me is one thing that icks me off. Because in as much as we can complain all we like about Nigerian leaders or people that are placed in pole positions in the country at the moment, but as a Nigerian to another Nigerian listening to me at this moment, we know if you bring out 10 Nigerians at this moment, you can't beat your hand on your chest and say 2 would actually, be completely different. Maybe 1 is possible, because I don't think Nigerians are that completely, bad. But maybe 1. And I say so because these people who have left the country and still receiving salaries without, doing the proper resignation thingy and all of that, so as to take their names off the payroll.
Of the payroll.
These people, before maybe getting to leave the country, are one of those people who could swear their life out that the leaders are evil, these people are bad, these people.
But they're still out of the country and they're still getting paid.
For goodness sake, for goodness sake, what makes you any different from any of our leaders? When the only little opportunity you have, as tiny as it is, you're stealing from the country. So who is to say when you're president you won't sell the country? It's I can't say it real well in Yoruba, but growing up, it's the Yorubas that say if you can't trust a child with 1 naira, you can't trust the child with 1,000 naira.
You're not going to get a change.
Do you understand? Because if we can't trust you as a counselor to be able to, with the little 200,000 or the 500,000 or the 1 million budget for you to handle, you mismanage it, you spend all of the money, and you think we're going to throw a 10 billion budget into your hands to manage, and you won't spend it. We're just giving you a bigger pause for you to live a La Vida Loca life. So we as Nigerians, we need to start acting the way we want our leaders to act, because the nation is going to be ruled by the people from the country. It's not as if it's strangers coming to rule us.
Yeah.
So if this is our attitude at every given opportunity we get, put a Nigerian, even as a security officer, is finding means of making his own money out of those particular means, forgetting that he's getting paid at the end of the month. If you know that job is not what you want and the salary is not good enough, do not take it. And you hear people, I don't have a choice. That is what I don't like to hear. There's always a choice. The fact is you can't live with the consequences of your choice. If you do not accept that job, the consequence is that you go hungry. Yes, that's true. You can't live with the consequence of your choice. It's not that you don't have a choice. There is a choice.
A lot of Nigerians want to eat their cake and still have it.
There's always a choice. Now, can you live with the consequence of your choice? You hear someone say, if I have not done that, maybe they would have killed me. Yes, that's a choice. Were you willing to die not to stain your hands from doing evil? Or you justify the fact that you don't want to die, so you did evil? There's always a choice. Living with the consequence of that choice, now that's where the problem lies. Other stories which we have on the Punch newspaper this morning, you see this one, and it says UK records 22,000 Nigeria asylum seekers. UK records 22,000 Nigerian asylum seekers. That's huge. That's really, really huge. Page 7 is where you see that story. And finally, on the front page of the Punch newspaper, just beside the nameplate, it says NNPCL sells 336 billion naira crude to Dangote foreign refiners. Report. One writer to that story says local refiners buys 32% of NNPCL crude in Q1. You find that story on page 33 of the Punch newspaper, and that's the Punch for this morning.
Anyway, from the Punch newspaper, this one is straight into the Vanguard newspaper. Top story on the Vanguard newspaper, you have two images right here are saying Pope Francis dies, and just beside that you also have images at the Nigerian Investment Forum right there in New York, having images from Bloomberg Emerging Market Editor at Large. You also have the Nobel Prize in Economics, Dr. James Robinson, the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Olayemi Cardoso, and other financial experts right there at the Nigerian Investment Forum in New York City. Just below that, you also have killings. Government says states under siege, claims reserves, forests have been taken over. And that particular one is coming from the north central Nigeria, that is Benue State. Right after that story is saying death toll in Good Friday's Elders attack in Benue rises to 72. Oh my goodness. The day a lot of people are looking to celebrate Easter, some people were losing their lives somewhere in Nigeria. The death toll from the Good Friday's Elders attack in Benue have now risen to 72. Another writer is saying protest rocks plateau over incessant killings. Danjuma's call for self-defense may lead to anarchy, and that's according to Jigawa's governor, Namadi. That particular story is on page 8 of the Vanguard newspaper. And still on the front page of the Guardian newspaper, APC National Assembly working to ensure Nigerians in diaspora vote. APC National Assembly and looking to ensure that Nigerians in diaspora get to vote. That's coming from Ganduje, and that's on page 16 of the Vanguard newspaper. Yes. E-voting.
Well, in as much as I am up for whatever makes our democracy stronger, I'm up for whatever means that Nigeria has to make sure that at least the Nigerian voice, wherever they may be, is heard. But before you swim in an ocean, you need to first start from a stream or maybe a pool. Then you go to a stream, then a river, then you can get to attempt an ocean. We're at a point in our electionary where the last promise about the beavers was not even completely used, because we saw what happened during the 2023 elections. Everybody with their different opinions. But the major, we saw what happened during 2023 elections. We've not been able to beat these little hurdles while we're trying to go for the bigger fish. While we're trying to, it's just like they're trying to make it seem like we are working to do something. Forgetting that we can do the little things that is really affecting us critically, and make it count. I tell you solemnly, if the Nigerian voices at home first can count, if their voices those that went to vote, it is counted and it's the right results that are being given to us at the end of the day, those in diaspora won't be bothered about even making their own voice heard. I'm not sure that's what is even top of their minds at the moment. Let our votes count right here. Let's have something that is done that makes us be confident in the institution. We're not yet even confident in INEC. I don't think if we take a survey now in Nigeria and take a really deep survey in Nigeria, you see a vote of confidence of 50% by Nigerians on INEC. It might be, I do not know, until a survey is done. But to the best of my knowledge, I don't believe we'll get up to 50% of confidence. And yet, we're trying to go for a bigger fish. Why not build the confidence of Nigerians on INEC? Why not build an institution that is free from corruption, an institution that makes sure that it gives us free and fair election at every point there's an election? And from there, if we can have stability, we can start thinking about those in diaspora. If the voices of those in diaspora really needs to be heard, probably they should come home and vote when it's time for them to vote.
Instead of doing the election.
If they find it so important that their voices must be heard, come back home. Come fix home. Do you get me? That shouldn't be our focus right now. In as much as I understand that it's a beautiful thing. Yes. But are we there yet?
Maybe not.
Maybe not.
All right, away from that particular one, another story just beside that is also saying Pope Francis died of stroke at failure, and that one is coming from the Vatican, and that's on page 15 of the Vanguard newspaper for this morning. And above the nameplate of the Vanguard newspaper, this one seems to be something that is actually, happening around me, and has to do with Unity colleges, where it's boiling right now over illegal levies, admission racketeering. And right after that story is saying parents alleged paying 600,000 naira for admission. Another writer is saying PTA leaders disregard government directive, increased levies. PTA not another administrative structure in schools, that's according to the Minister of Education. I recall I was having a chat with one of my cousins, and they'll be like, this time around it doesn't even feel like they're in school. Because one thing that usually happens right now is when it looks like the school is broke, they just look for an excuse to let them go home. Since there's nothing for you guys to do again in school, just go home. Whenever the school is broke. And of course, to the best of my knowledge, I do understand that all of these academic institutions, just like they're under the Ministry of Education, they kind of like have a budget for each school. So what's happening? Where are the funds going to? Is it that they are getting less funds for more students, or they are bringing in more students more than the amount they can cater for, or what exactly is it that is happening with all of these schools in recent times?
It still boils down to the same thing, like I said earlier on. The Nigerian system is so rotten deeply that you would be astonished at the means almost every Nigerian in charge somewhere takes just to eat out of the system. It's like every Nigerian who is in charge somewhere is thinking at the back of my mind, this is my own opportunity to take whatever I can take away from the system. And it's really, really sad that it has boiled down, deep down in our education system. Because nowadays we remember the unity schools. You would have to be certain marks for you to gain admission into those unity schools.
Even if you're going to do a mainstream admission exams,
you needed to do all of those things, common entrances, those exams, and you had to pass. You see, you would see quotas were given from different regions for people who gained this admission. You would see students who were in that school at most times, most of them, extremely gifted students who are so good because academically they could thrive. But nowadays, what do we have? Because now many parents do understand that, okay, going to those schools, the standards that those schools are supposed to have, they need they need their kids to be in those schools. But they forget that by bribing and by doing all of these things, it means the standard of those schools is not as high as you think. Because if the people who are in charge of those schools could go as far as taking bribes just to admit students, who's to say they're even giving enough knowledge to make those students go higher in life? Who's to say they're not doing favoritism to some of the students, or those parents are still not paying to make sure that those students pass their exams? When things like this begin to happen in our education industry, it spells only one thing: chaos in the future. Because these same people are the people who will come out to build the society. A child who knows his way has been paid through school, a child who knows everything is at his beck and call, a child who knows he can buy his way out of everything,
definitely will be nonchalant with academics,
with everything, and that same child might end up being president one day. So what are you expecting? The society, our leadership is the sum of what our society is all about. These are the people that make the majority of our society. Those are the kind of people we're getting at leadership. And if we keep ruining our education system, if we keep ruining the future, if we keep ruining the young ones by involving them in things like this that they should never be part of, we're ruining the future. Before it was JAMB, special centers to WAEC and all of that. How did that pan out for people? How did that pan out?
That we were breeding a below-par students in
below-par
institutions.
students. With this, Nigeria it's a country that prides itself with students who feel that they can compete anywhere in the world. We feel if we go to a system where everything is better, we are twice better than any other person. It's what we pride ourselves about. We have that self-belief that if we go into a working system, ain't no one better than us. But if you are at this point breeding students in schools who cannot even compete at all, then how can they compete with a brighter world where things are way better, where the education is way better? We used to be very good at it because we had to study twice as hard. We had to do all of the things that we needed to do twice as much. And we trusted the system, the education system growing up. But how has it been so far? The same old system. The curriculum hasn't changed.
Nothing.
All what keeps changing is system 62224, like it's a formation, 6335 and then 99222. Like that's what matters.
Just the figures.
Like that's what really matters.
And a bit of the curriculum too.
How many of the things? The things, if you want to see,
I think at the point in time, history was removed from,
for goodness sake,
from the syllabus.
At a time when I was in the teaching industry, because yes, I was once a teacher. At a time then, I had to bring back history personally, out of my own volition and my own sweat, pick up the subject on my own. Aside from the subject I was taking,
just to,
to be able to put it in
have
there.
a beat.
And I saw how parents appreciated it. I saw how my boss was calling me saying this parent said, oh, that this is so nice, blah, 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 blah. I know how important it was. But how many schools have history in their education?
There's no longer history. It's been incorporated into another subject entirely.
And the people who do not know their history would not know how to find their future. It is what it is.
Well, parents are complaining, and we hope that something is being done in no time concerning the alleged admission racketeering and also illegal levies that are being paid by parents to get their students or their children or their kids or their wards into the Unity colleges. Still taking stories from the Vanguard newspaper this morning. Just below the nameplate is saying, federal government refutes claims of agreed concession period for Enugu Airport. That's on page 11 of the Vanguard newspaper. And just like we've mentioned, in other dailies, manufacturers unsold inventory surges 87.5% to 2.14 trillion naira. That's on business page and 20 of the Vanguard newspaper. And on the sports page of the Vanguard newspaper this morning, it's saying rename National Stadium in Lagos after Chukwu. That's according to the sports stakeholders. Rename National Stadium in Lagos after Chukwu. Might be a little bit dicey though.
Why?
I mean, I know for one that yes, during his time, his life, and also his death, he's been celebrated as the first captain of the Super Eagles to win the African Cup of Nations, and he did it on the home soil. Right there in that particular stadium, by the way. But I mean, this thing is something that you cannot take away politics from our football. So that is the only reason why I feel like might be a little bit dicey.
I wanted to be sure. I wanted to be sure you were at the exact point at which I was. Because today in Nigeria, if that happens, there'll be so many things. There will be so many talks. There will be so many things. But I don't think it should be listened to. I say so because Christian Chukwu is a legend of the Nigerian football.
Definitely.
Christian Chukwu is someone who has done so much. And I don't think even naming a stadium does enough to his legendary status.
Well, that was all Rashidi Yekini got just last year from the Kwara State government.
But I don't think it's enough. I think we should go as far as immortalizing these people with statues too sometimes. Probably at the stadiums. Maybe that could even still work.
Do we do statues here? I doubt if we do statues here.
Which is why I say probably we could do that. Immortalize them more, do something more, do something more. But if the National Stadium in Lagos is one way they want to immortalize him, I think it's a big one. Because this is the one man that took us to 2 World Cups without being at those World Cups. This is one man that has done so much, even as the captain of the Super Eagles of Nigeria. I think it's the least thing that they could do for him. But we also know that there will be huge backlash in terms of so many things that will be said all over the social media, and I don't think it's right. You know where I'm pointing to, but I don't think it's right, and I think we should look way beyond that, and we should look way beyond our sentiments and the cheap politicking that we do, and make sure that Nigerians, irrespective of wherever they come from, however they may be, that has made Nigeria proud should be respected and honored for what they have done for the country.
Most definitely. I mean, that looks like a very good soft landing spot on the show this morning. Newspaper review, where we get to talk to you about everything that is making the headlines in the editorials for today. And it's been an awesome time sharing insights into all of the major dailies with you this morning. Ayade Jajiboye signing out this morning. I'll tell you to go out there and be the best version of yourself. Don't forget to be kind, because kindness is cool.
My name is Uche Okorie. Till I come your way again tomorrow for another exciting edition of the newspaper review. Have yourself a beautiful, beautiful Tuesday. God bless you.
Hello there. Join us Mondays to Fridays, 7:05 a.m. for newspaper reviews, headlines, analysis, and comments on your urban lifestyle station. High Impact 102.1 FM.
Everywhere you go.
No matter